In this tutorial, you're going to learn how to use the Cubase score editor to create staff notation from your MIDI note data. You must remember that you cannot use audio tracks and audio events to create staff notation. The notation engine within Cubase can only work with MIDI data. Have a look at this Cubase project. There are 3 tracks: sax, piano and bass. Let's start by taking the pencil tool and drawing in an empty 4-bar MIDI event on the bass track. Let's now open that event in the score menu using the Open Selection command. Here we can see an empty 4-bar stave. There are several ways to record MIDI note data in step time. The first is to choose the Insert Note tool and then choose the default note length, either crotchets, quavers or minims. In this example I'm going to use crotchets, and finally set up the quantize and length quantize values to crotchet notes also. Now we can start to click in and insert notes onto the stave: D, E natural, an F, G, and so forth throughout the 4-bar phrase. If I make a mistake, I can click on a note, for example this G, which I want to be an F sharp, and provided that I have the Show Info line turned on, I can select the pitch and overtype this with F sharp and 2. And then you'll notice that the note changes. F sharp 2 again, click return, and the note's in the correct position. Inputting notes with the Insert Note tool can be quite laborious, and sometimes you'll want to use your MIDI keyboard to play notes in, which will be a lot faster. Let's delete these notes and make sure we're at the beginning of the piece of music. Check that the step input mode is turned on. This will make sure that any data that we play on our keyboard is inputted into Cubase. Let's now make sure that the quantize values are set to quarter notes again. This will mean that every time we play a note, it will have a length of a quarter note, and they'll be inserted at quarter note or crotchet positions. Now go to your MIDI keyboard and start to play notes on the keyboard. Let's start with a D, and now an E, and now an F, and now an F sharp, and then a G, and so forth. So I've now entered a walking bass line based on an arising and descending sequence in D minor. If I close the score editor and look at the project window, I can now see my 4-bar bass line. I can simply use the duplicate function to create a copy, and then set my left and right locators around this 8-bar event. Let's now hit play, turn the cycle mode on, and listen to the music. Okay, so I've now got an 8-bar walking bass pattern. Now let's choose the piano track, and we're going to enter some chords. But this time we're going to record in real time. What I'm going to do is play the chords whilst listening to the bass line and a MIDI click. Let's turn the MIDI click in the transport bar on, make sure the pre-count's on, hit record, and we'll start to hear a 2-bar count in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so forth. So I've now created myself an 8-bar piano chord track. Let's have a listen to them together. Okay, so now let's open up the piano MIDI event in the score editor. Select it, choose Open Selection. Let's get our locator back to the beginning, and we'll notice that we've got a bit of a spider's web of complex notation. Don't panic, because there's something we can do about this quite easily. Let's choose the score menu and choose the settings. This opens the score settings window, and there's various tabs and sub-tabs. Let's work with the staff tab and the main sub-tab. First thing we're going to do is sort out the display quantize. I know that I don't want anything shorter than a quaver note or an eighth note. and I don't want any rest to display that are any shorter than a crotchet. If I click apply now, you can instantly see that the note lengths and the rhythm positions of my music has been tidied up. I can now go back into the interpretation options, click on the consolidate rests, clean lengths and no overlap. Click apply once again, and instantly now we've almost got perfect note lengths. Next thing we can do is to click on the polyphonic sub-tab, and now we need to set up the piano part to have a split polyphonic mode so that I've got a right hand and a left hand. Select it, click apply, close the window, and we can see now that the piano music is split across both the treble and bass clef. If I wanted to change note lengths anywhere, for example here where I've got some dotted minims, I can select them, go to the event info line, choose the note length, double click and type in the new note length value. What we could do now is select both of these tracks, open them in the score using the open selection, and you can now see I've got the piano part and the bass part both displayed in staff notation. Final thing, let's now select the sax track and let's create a melody line. You could do this in real time or you could input it as step time, putting notes onto the stave. Let's have a listen and record a sax line over the top. 2-bar counting. I can record several melody lines and then I can comp together a perfect take. Let's now choose the first saxophone take, open it in the score editor, and we can see that it needs some rhythmic tidying up. We can open the staff settings by clicking on the eye, or back to the score menu and choosing settings. Choose the staff tab and the main tab. Now let's type in a staff name, sax, and let's just now decide that the note lengths display quantize is going to have a swing fill, so we're going to set this to 8th triplets, and we're going to set the rests to crotchets or quarter notes. Let's now apply that and take another quick look at the notation, and we can see it looks a little bit tidier. Now let's turn this into shuffle mode within the interpretation options and consolidate the rests, clean the lengths and click apply. All of a sudden we're starting to get a much more accurate and tidy piece of notation. Where you've got problems such as here, you can select the notes that are wrong, and if needs be, just delete them. In order to hear the music as you're changing it in the score editor, turn on the acoustic feedback, click on a note, and you hear it back. If you want to move a note, you can just change its pitch and its position in terms of bars and beats. To change the duration of a note, select it, look at the info line, and basically just change the length in the info line. The Cubase Score Editor is a really quick and easy way to start turning your MIDI note data into staff notation.